Good afternoon. Welcome to today's edition of the Coal Scene. I'm Chris Hamilton with the West Virginia Coal Association, and I'll be your host for today's program. Joining me in the studio today is one of West Virginia's newly elected Congressman, Evan Jenkins from Huntington, West Virginia. Congressman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thanks. Good to see you, Chris.
Really appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to join us here today to talk a little bit about your new committee assignments, your new opportunity and duty as a congressman, and a little bit about your district.
Well, I appreciate it. Welcome the opportunity. Feel very fortunate to have been given the chance to serve the people of the 3rd Congressional District, and it's great to be on your show. And I suspect we'll talk about coal, we'll talk about the future, and we're going to talk about what we're doing to fight for coal in Washington.
We're going to talk about all those things. I was just thinking that boy, what a whirlwind tour the last 12 months. This time a year ago, you just finished a primary election, was nominated by your party. Then you started the summer months heading into a full fall race, which concluded in November with you winning the election. And here it's been, what, 5 months already. On one hand, a very short, fast period of time. On the other hand, wow, 25% of your term's almost behind you.
Don't remind me when filing period is. It has been a great experience, and you and I have had the honor of working together for a number of years. I appreciate all you do in the Coal Association and the Friends of Coal. Serving 18 years in the West Virginia legislature, fighting for, candidly, a jobs climate in this state, try to get our people back working in West Virginia, solve problems, get our state moving again, and yes, decided to run for Congress about a year and a half ago. And it was a long, hard campaign. The 3rd Congressional District is 18 counties, so it's a little over 600,000 people, a lot of territory to cover, a lot of issues. And so for somebody who'd served in the legislature representing Cabell and Wayne, and Cabell County and Huntington, my hometown, they certainly had worked that area a lot, but there's 16 other counties that had not spent the kind of time from the area that I had represented in the legislature. So we worked real hard in the campaign. We got out, visited with people, talked about what's going on or not going on in Washington, the frustrations about the war on coal, what this administration has been doing to really devastate our coal industry, our coal miners, coal families, and our coal communities. So was very fortunate to have the opportunity to be elected to Congress, and in November of 2014 had the card punched to have the opportunity to go to Washington and work for the next 2 years on behalf of the people of the 3rd Congressional District. The transition was a real unique experience, about 10 days freshman orientation. You have your office selection process. You get to know other members of your freshman class, and you get ready to get to work, and was sworn in officially in early January, and we've been hard at it ever since.
Well, no doubt you just took off running once you got there. I'm sure there wasn't much downtime in the earlier stages. You mentioned that you previously served in the West Virginia legislature, and we did have an opportunity to work together, and just appreciate so much your leadership while you were here within the West Virginia legislature, and all the business and energy initiatives that you championed while you were here, both as a state senator and as a member of our House of Delegates.
Well, when you think of it, Chris, and obviously there's nobody who's spent any more time than you have at the Capitol championing an environment in this state where we can build a job, grow a job, help create a job through policies that enable people to get back to work. I'm a firm believer that if a good job solves a lot of problems. when you look at the challenges our state faces, candidly, we have a drug abuse problem. We see some issues like heroin cropping up. These things are devastating to our state, and it's devastating to the people. But we got to get people working. We got to give people hope. And that's what's so frustrating, candidly, and what motivated me to run for Congress is the fact that the policies and what was coming out of Washington was not only wrong for our country, but wrong for the people of West Virginia and the 3rd District in particular, where coal is king. And we have built the greatness of this country. The manufacturing plants, the steel plants, the power generation on the backs of coal and coal miners. So I wanted to go fight for Southern West Virginia, but it's been, you know, again, a labor of love and passion to want to work so hard to get West Virginia moving again.
Well, we're just so fortunate to have you in Washington fighting for us and trying to find those workable solutions to the problems we have. We're real close because of a lot of the layoffs and cutbacks in Southern West Virginia to see a balance of productivity today between Northern West Virginia and Southern West Virginia. But just a few years ago, and the trend over the past 25, 30 years has been that Southern West Virginia has been responsible for about 3/4 of our state's productivity to about 70%. And I'm not sure there's another congressional district in the country. Maybe one or two, perhaps in Wyoming.
Well, I compare notes and working with my counterparts in other parts of the country. You know, we have a common element. We have a common theme. We've got a common passion, and that is to be able to put this incredible natural resource that's God-given, that again, we've built our country on. We've got the best coal miners that know how to mine coal. We've got abundant resources. These people who suggest that coal's days are over are simply wrong. These folks who say, well, we've mined out all the easy coal, they're wrong. I have been underground twice just since January. I'd been underground before that, but you know, twice. In just the last few weeks to, again, talk with our coal miners, talk with our operators, talk about the future and how we can get it going. So coal does have a future. You know, we all know Southern West Virginia, low sulfur, wonderful met coal. We've got the best coal in the world. We've got the best coal miners in the world. And unfortunately, it's those folks in Washington, and it's the regulators, and it's the folks that just want to see coal-fired power generation in. They want to stop coal mining activity, and they're using every tool in their toolbox, and candidly some tools that aren't even in their toolbox, to try to put a stop to it. So we're standing up for coal, and we are using this window of opportunity that the voters of the 3rd Congressional District have afforded me the opportunity to have to go to work for it.
Well, one of the things that we want to try to get across to some of our viewers, and you're certainly aiding the objective very well here, but we have a lot of good people that's working every day to try to find solutions and to try to push back on some of these federal regulations and the environment that's coming out of Washington.
You know, I think you make a good point, and that is, number one, we all agree the environment is critically important. We want clean water, we want clean air, we want a beautiful landscape, and we've got that in West Virginia, and we want to keep that in West Virginia and preserve it, not only for our generation, but future generations. But you talk about investment. I candidly, after the election, worked tooth and nail, because just like at under the dome in Charleston, in Washington, the power is really in the committee process. That's where the work gets done on legislation. And I was able to get on the House Appropriations Committee. This, out of the 57 freshman members, the Appropriations Committee was going to take 2 at most.
And I'm sure all 57 requested to be on
something
the
tells
Appropriations
me it
Committee.
was a hard sought after, lots of competitions. But we were able to work with, candidly, Chairman Rogers, the chair of the House Appropriations Committee. He's from coal
Just across the
country.
river.
He is. And so I had a sit down with Chairman Rogers, just like you and I are talking here today. And I said, Mr. Chairman, help me help you. We're both Appalachia. We're both coal. We're both fighting the war on coal. We've got enormous challenges, but also great opportunities. And I was fortunate to get selected. So we are using, working my way back around to the point that you made about the future and investment. We actually, right now, are working up what's called the Interior Appropriations Bill. I am on the subcommittee of Interior, and we control the EPA budget. We control the Department of Interior. There's only 11. So we think of 435 members of Congress. There's actually only 11 people on the subcommittee that handles these budgets. And what we are doing is not only using the power of the purse to try to direct, poke, and prod the agencies to get off our backs and let us start mining coal again, but we're also directing funding for research and development in clean coal technology and other initiatives that will give coal a future. And so it's not all the heavy hammer, but by gosh, we've got the heavy hammer out. I'll be darned if we're going to allow an investment in this administration's war on coal, and we're in there with a scalpel, cutting out everything we can to make sure they get off our backs and let us mine coal again. But we're also saying we've got a different priority. We can make an investment in the future of coal, and so it's a wonderful opportunity to be right there in a very small group to be able to fight for our state.
I was in a conversation about energy generally yesterday, and someone made the observation that everything seems to be in suspension and in play at the current time. You know, which fuels are going to succeed, which fuel producing regions are going to succeed or do a little better than some. What fuels are we going to rely upon in the future? And someone else observed that, you know, we may just be in a period of time that years from now historians refer to as the energy age. And it just seems to make a lot of sense.
Well, I think we all have a level of enthusiasm. For so long and far too long, this dependence upon foreign oil. But with the energy opportunities that we have in this country, in this state, let's get coal going again. Let's also continue our oil and gas. The shale gas opportunities are enormous. But this is where we can have 1 + 1 = 3.
Yes.
We should not be giving up on coal and have people say, well, you know, coal's days are over, shale gas will take its place, let's just move forward. That's simply unacceptable to me. So I think we recognize we are in a unique situation with 4 things at play. Yes, we have an energy explosion with shale gas opportunities. We have a world economy that candidly is not moving along like any of us would like to see. We have got a national economy that is not moving. And fourth, we've got a regulatory environment that is going after coal like nobody has ever seen in the past. So everybody oftentimes picks one of these factors as what's happening to coal. Well, it's the shale gas is the demise. It's the world economy, and we don't we're just not exporting and using the way we used to. My problem is market forces I recognize will always be at play. There are some of these you can't influence, but that regulatory environment that we have been forced to live under these last 6-7 years has had such a foot on the throat of the coal industry. So these other factors will sort themselves out. But what can we really do something about? That's the regulatory environment. Let's address that issue and allow the market forces to continue as they always do. But why should we be having the heavy hand of the regulatory arm of government coming in and trying to decide who winners and losers are to further a particular agenda?
You know, it's interesting, to just to see what all's going on, you know, here today. Our domestic economy is relatively flat, as you indicate, but we track this thing back here, the war on coal, since this president took office, and he's been using every single agency, every resource he has available to him to try to ratchet back or ensure that there's less coal being produced, less miners working. But you know, today, you know, it's a whole different picture than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. But we've been tracking this, and you know, as we had the economic crisis, the Wall Street collapse, and you know, all the problems with the automotive industry, we were actually in a strong energy market domestically at that point, and we were seeing exports increase, but we couldn't get mining permits here. Yeah. If you recall, we were trying to hire miners, and we had equipment spreads on the ground, and could not get a mining permit from the federal government to you know, to start up new operations or expand existing operations. Fast forward 3 or 4, now 5, 6 years, you know, we're doing everything we can to ratchet back coal production, coal consumption here, but world coal continues to rise. Yes. You know, there are more power plants under construction throughout the world than ever before. Yes. But yet we're doing everything we can to ratchet down. You and I both know here. Chapter and verse, the examples in Germany and other countries that have gone. China and India.
But there are those countries, and China's not one of them, there are those countries like Germany who invested in renewables significantly. Yes. Significantly. They've done it. They've seen their power cost go up. They realize they don't have the reliability and the cost effective of what a wonderful energy source like coal-fired power generation. And as you know, they're coming online with new coal-fired power plants. Yes, also in China and elsewhere. So the world markets, if this, you know, one of my 4 elements is the world economy. If the world economy gets going again, and we start to see steel manufacturing and industrial activity, the overseas market for even our West Virginia coal will grow. That is one of those factors that is something we hope for. Let's get this world moving. But we can't deny the level of excitement that I have and others to say once and for all, we can rid ourselves of our dependency on foreign oil. We can actually be the energy exporter. But we can make, this is a national defense issue. Oh, absolutely. This is a national security issue. Look what we've gotten ourselves involved in around the world, all under the issue of energy. But we've got it. And incredibly, we're not in a state thinking about energy in other parts of the country. We're in a state where we've got the energy resources that this country needs right under our ground. Let's put our people to work.
No question about it. And to think that all the devastation, the economic dislocation today is being created by the formulation or advancement of public policy. Yes. You know, it's not an overly complex or technical issue. Yeah. If it was, we'd have it solved. We have some of the better technical engineering minds in the world right here within our mining industry.
I don't know if you have time for an example. Yesterday, I spent an hour with a gentleman who has a wife and 2 kids. He has been a coal miner for well over a decade. He said, "Evan, I left my current job because it was at risk, and I just drove to a new job. I said, well, congratulations. What mine are you working at? He says, I drove to Montana.
Wow.
He just took a job 2 months ago and actually drove there. A job in Montana at a coal mine. He has brought 3 or 4 other coal miners from our region to those. His wife and kids still live back here because of their commitment to their to her mother who lives next door.
Family.
So he goes there 3 weeks a month, comes here because of the opportunity. And he just says, you know, this is incredible. I'm mining coal there, and we all sit out there in Montana with a lot of folks from Kentucky and West Virginia that were coal miners here saying, isn't this something that we have to come out here and we can't do this in our own backyard?
Wow. You know, I think we have 5,000, 6,000 miners that have been furloughed here from West Virginia, and another probably an equal amount from eastern Kentucky and southwest Virginia. And all told, that's over 10,000. That's probably close to 11,000 miners.
And when you think of that average coal wage of that $65,000, $70,000,
it's upwards of a couple $2 billion that's been removed.
It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out the economic impact, and then all the extra jobs, and whether it be 6 jobs for every coal jobs or 11 or 12. We know that the roll up is significant, and candidly, this administration doesn't get it.
No.
I don't think they care.
No.
And we are raising the awareness and the voice. I took 2 coal miners from Logan County to Washington to testify before the Appropriations Committee because Gina McCarthy, the head of the EPA, simply refused to come talk to the coal miners. So one of the great things about having a seat in Congress, having a seat on the Appropriations Committee, is I can do things like bringing West Virginia to Washington and putting a face on the Doug Killens and the Jordans Bridges and their families. It was powerful.
Well, we've seen these jobs go away. They haven't gone away. They're just, you know, as you say, we hope everything comes back, but they're furloughed at the current time. We're seeing layoffs, cutbacks, and our mining companies have been transitioning from, you know, a period of austerity to implementing survival plans so they can hopefully make it through this period. But to make all this worse, to really compound the issues, we're now seeing closure of coal-fired power generators. Yeah. We've had 6 announced, 3 apiece by our 2 major utilities that just are not able to install and afford the the rather expensive and complex after treatment systems, and there's some discussion taking place to try to influence the PSC or the governor to do what they're able to do to keep those plants and instead of being mothballed and dismantled, because once that occurs, they're gone forever. But there's the suggestion out here today to do what can be done to try to keep those plants in a state of readiness.
Yeah, you're right. This is not the flip of a switch, no. Whether it be to shut down a power plant or to convert it, to think you're going to restart it or convert it back. With the flip of the switch simply can't, it would be cost prohibitive to occur. So the challenge is, and that's what's so frustrating, is we know the utilities do take the long-term view. And while this administration has all these rules, whether it be proposed or final rules, you have to plan years and years in advance. And so when the administration says, well, these are maybe knee-jerk reactions, I understand that you have to take the long view. The business needs predictability. But when it comes to trying to retain every coal-fired power generation possible, not having these mothballed, not having them just quickly turned over to other energy sources, we need to be looking at ways. We need to be working with industry. That's every day. I share the, help is here. This administration will be over in less than 2 years. We have lawsuits that our Attorney General is advancing to try to use the courts. So we've got 3 areas. We're going to have the courts, hopefully, will help because I think we've got very good legal basis to stop the overreach. You've got legislative efforts that me and certainly our congressional delegation are working in unison to fight this administration. And then, fortunately, we have a constitution that says this president will be gone in just less than 2 years. And I will be working very hard to make sure we hopefully get a new president that is a true friend of coal and our coal miners in West
Desperately
Virginia.
needed, and we hope we can hold out till then. I believe some of us are going to be able to, no question about that. To your recent point, we do have a great elected group of people that are working for us and on our behalf.
Well,
You and your 2 colleagues, Congressman McKinley from the 1st Congressional District and Congressman Mooney from the 2nd Congressional District. I indicated yesterday I was on a local television show, and I characterized you guys working in tandem with Senator Capito and Senator Manchin. Then when you look at our state political leadership today with Senate President, Lieutenant Governor Bill Cole, House Speaker Tim Armstead, I mean, this represents a royal straight flush was the characterization I put on it, as it relates to energy and the overall economic health of the state.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Your words are the reality in that we do work well together. Regardless of party labels in Washington, we are collectively